Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I come to you on this magnificent morning from the grounds of Sydney University, and I'm here in the main quadrangle on this autumn morning. What I'd love to do today is do what I normally do and go through a book. And the book that I've selected for today's episode is entitled It Takes What It Takes, a book that was published on the 4th of February 2020 by a dual authorship of Andy Staples and Trevor Moawad. So this book talks about a concept called neutral thinking as opposed to positive thinking or negative thinking. And it looks at seeing things just as they are and acting accordingly. And this, as a concept, is quite intriguing because most people tend to struggle with overthinking and self-doubt. And this book here promises a more practical approach to staying focused when under pressure. So let's go for a walk around and have a bit of a chat about this book and see what we can learn, what we can incorporate into our skill set and use when the time arises. So the first key message that comes from this book is where we look at neutral thinking as being far more positive, far more powerful, should I say, than positivity. We normally think that staying positive is a key to success, but this book shows that positivity can sometimes be unrealistic and invites us to consider another perspective. Instead of forcing optimism, neutral thinking helps one see things a little more objectively, acknowledging reality without adding unnecessary emotion or fear. The next message to come from this book is where we look at the concept of the past not dictating the future. For most people, some of the biggest struggles and challenges they face is letting past mistakes define them. And this book reinforces that what happened before is only relevant if you allow it to shape your present moments and present actions and present decisions. We need to understand, appreciate, and respect that every single moment is indeed a new opportunity to make better choices, and we're not defined by the past in any way, shape or form, and we need to make sure that we fight for the right of not being defined by the negative aspects of our past. The next point to come from this author is where we look at feelings, and the author makes a very valid point that feelings are not facts. It's important to realise that most people make very important decisions based on emotions rather than reality. And this book hopefully teaches one to step back and to separate our feelings from the actual situation, and this in and of itself makes it easier to respond rationally rather than to react animalistically or impulsively. You get to think about what you're doing. You get to choose your response rather than just do what makes you feel better. The author also talks about the fact that success requires doing what's necessary and not doing necessarily what's comfortable. The title itself, It Takes What It Takes, is a wake-up call. Achieving one's goals isn't about doing what I feel like doing. It's about doing what's absolutely necessary, even when it's hard or inconvenient. And this requires self-discipline, and the author here reminds us that self-discipline will always beat motivation. What happens with most of us is that we rely too much on motivation, expecting to feel inspired before we take the required action. This book helps one realise that motivation is indeed unreliable, and it's discipline and habits that actually create and generate the results that we need and are looking for in our lives. We need to also consider that we can't control everything. We can only control the things that we can control. So we need to ignore the things we can't control, because so much energy is wasted worrying about things that lay outside of our control. This book helps one shift their focus to what one can influence, so that our actions, our mindsets, and our responses are targeted and specific to the situation. And the last key point to come from this book is where we look at thinking clearly under pressure and understanding that this indeed is a skill that can be created. Most of us panic when things don't go as planned, but what we learn is that by staying neutral and making logical decisions can help us get to better outcomes. High performers, whether athletes or business leaders, don't let their emotions dictate their actions. They focus instead on the next right step. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club, and I look forward to coming to you again from another place and with another message of empowerment. Take care and bye for now.